welcome to Leading Inspired Learning, a Strive podcast.
Welcome to Leading Inspired Learning, a Strive podcast. I am Allie and your host for today's episode. And today is awesome because I get to talk to my two wonderful coworkers, Lena and Nyiel. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Mm-hmm.
You two are two of my newest. Are you the two? You were after Victoria. Yeah.
A day after Victoria.
Yeah, technically,
so
you
were the two newest.
I mean, it's almost been a year at this point, but still, two newest.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, want to tell us who you are and what you do with Strive?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lena, and I am one of the Resource Center specialists here at Strive. So if you visit the Resource Center, then you will see me out there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Nyiel. I am a community animator, and I work with my partner, Kayla Paquette. We're always in the community with centers, working with leaders and educators, and kind of just filling in the gap and providing support.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So your faces may be familiar. I'm not 100% sure of our timing, but you were two of our faces for the DEIB resources that we created and are going to be if they haven't already, they will be circulating in the community.
Yes.
So familiar voices and faces. And we are talking about DEIB concepts in this episode, but today we want to talk about
language.
Yeah. But language a little bit differently than we spoke about in the videos.
Yes. Language in terms of like linguistics, learning English as a second language, or even now for both of us, raising bilingual children specifically.
Yes. And now both of you learned English as a second language, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
I learned mine when I was probably 8 years old is when we came to Canada. So, 1999. And then from then on, it took me about a year to learn the language spoken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm very similar. We moved to Canada in 1999. I was 6 at the time. So although I had done a British schooling back in Abu Dhabi where I was born and where I lived, but it was really only kindergarten that I did there. Right. And then when I got to Canada, it was grade 1. So English was my second language at the age of 6. Yeah.
Okay. And Nyiel, do you want to share, let's start with you. Do you want to share a little bit of your story? You talked about moving here in 1999. Where'd you come from? Wasn't that a Cotton Eye Joe? Where'd you come from?
Yes.
My story is very long. So I'm just going to break down a little bit. So my family is originally from South Sudan. And then we migrated from South Sudan to a refugee camp in Kenya, which was a long journey, but we got there. And then from there, my mother was working with UN, and then she got us sponsorship with a church here in London, Ontario in 1999. And then, we moved here, and we've been here ever since.
And so what language were you born and raised learning speaking?
I was born and raised learning Dinka. I was speaking Dinka from a very... as a child. And then on top of that, we learned some Arabic because Arabic was the primarily language for learning back in those days with my mother especially. So we naturally learned it from our aunts, our uncles, our grandmas, our moms. And then when we were migrated to Kenya, we started learning Swahili as well. And then, so I had those two languages and then my primary Dinka. So I came to Canada already understanding, comprehending 3 languages.
Wow.
And then I was then thrust to then now pick up English and French at the same time because our school systems
are bilingual.
English and French.
Yeah.
So it was quite
no big deal. Just learn 5 languages.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
It's not English as a second language for you. It's a fourth.
It was my fourth.
Yeah.
And it was really difficult in the sense of yes, I came young, so I was able to pick up the language a lot easier than my 13-year-old sister at the time. But it was still such a challenge because there were different expectations thrown on us to just be able to adapt quickly and also almost have that for lack of a better word, just being able to pick it up and go, and also have interactions with peers and teachers and
the social
side of it all. And
not just the academic, it's also the conversational piece, right?
100%.
Which is different.
And then trying to not lose your identity in that as well, because in your home we speak one language, and then in your other go to society, and now you're expected to just blend. So it was
blend. I don't like that. But yeah, a reality, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Lena, you were 6.
Yes, I was 6, and then I came here, and I don't really remember feeling like a challenge in picking up English. I don't remember going through that. I felt like, I don't know if it's because I was so young and I learned it and I picked it up so fast, or because of like that 1 year of schooling I did in a British school, helped me be more familiar with the language when I was here. But for me, it was a little bit different because my brother and I, my older brother and I, we learned English so quickly being in school, but my parents did not learn English very quickly. And so when we would come home from school, at one point, like just a few months later, my brother and I were starting to speak English to each other. And my parents were constantly like, no, Arabic only, Arabic only. So at home, we were constantly forced to just speak Arabic. But then anywhere else, of course, we were using English and we were speaking English. And I was in ESL classes. I think Nyiel and I have talked about this, where, I don't know what it's like now in school systems, but we would get pulled out of our regular classrooms one time a day, and then we would be pulled into like a smaller classroom. Sometimes I had other students with me. Sometimes it was just me and another teacher, and I was basically given English lessons. And I was doing that all the way from grade 1 to grade 4, even though I don't remember feeling like I was struggling with English, but it almost felt like, I always say, like, I felt like I was a quota that the school was trying to meet. Like, oh, we have this foreigner student who English was not her first language. She's clearly struggling. Let's pull her out. And then we talked about this. We're like, well, you think we're struggling, but now you're also pulling us out of our regular curriculum classes where we're now falling behind in those ones because you're constantly pulling us out of our classes.
And then we're not able to be learning with our peers. So we're not getting the same social interactions in terms of naturally picking up the language and what we could be like learning with our peers. So therefore we're now learning with adults. So our mannerisms and things are probably slightly different now. And then when we're expected to then go and learn with our peers, we kind of feel isolated a little bit.
Absolutely.
And so we're not able to socially be conversing and interacting with them because we feel like we have to do it separate. And I felt like that held me back personally a lot in my interactions. And it also started putting the labels on me.
Yes.
Then I all of a sudden had a learning disability all of a sudden. And then now I had to do more time with my ESL teacher or
It like feels like immediately othering you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't know, the way I see language now and everything that we know, like being in the field that we're in, is the way to teach language is not to isolate, separate, and throw the language at them. It's to actually have them be in that language environment and just, through the play, through the learning, through the academics, but like removing a child from the language that you're trying to teach them is not really the way to go about it. I just remember it feeling so isolating, and I actually didn't stop the ESL classes until I advocated for myself. I remember one day in the 4th grade, I got pulled out and I was so frustrated because I really wanted to stay in whatever class was happening at the time. And I sat with the ESL teacher, and it was just me that day in the class with her. And I looked at her and I said, why am I here? I feel like I speak English great. I understand everything great. Why am I still here? And that was the last time I ever had an ESL class. Nobody talked to me about it. Nobody told me, okay, this was your last one. All of a sudden, I just stopped going. And so...
And I'm so opposite in that too. So I love hearing that because ESL almost became my identity throughout my elementary school years. It was like... I was constantly in it, and I didn't get out of it until high school, basically. So for me, it's opposite. Like it became who I was. Like Nyiel had to be taken out of class to go now learn English, even though she's speaking English. But of course, there's always the written and the grammar and things like that I was a little bit slower to pick up because, like I said,
Fourth
I came
language.
in, I came in speaking a lot of languages, which made easy to pick up the spoken English, I should say. But the writing and the grammar and stuff was a bit more of a challenge for me. Yeah. But I feel like it just became like who I was in a sense. And so you being able to advocate for yourself, it's so
that's
huge
amazing.
with language.
Yeah.
And then thinking back too, in terms of what you said, where language, we pick it up so much quicker when we're around our environments and our children.
Immersion, right?
Immersion,
yes,
100%.
yeah.
That's what we, in our field, when we have a child that speaks a second language or a first language even, we're almost aware that we should be trying to engage with them in their language as well, as much as they are in ours. We should be learning a few phrases or a few words that will help them feel that sense of belonging. So when we're not receiving that from our
there was none of that.
It's very difficult.
Do you remember when your English language understanding comprehension was low? Do you remember what it felt like to be in a space where it was totally English and you weren't really understanding? Like, what were the emotions that were happening? You were young at the time.
I felt mocked, for me. So when I had come from the refugee camp, we had very little schooling, but in our little schooling we learned a few words type thing, and my mother was fluent in English. She had the education. But for us in school, we were taught, little sentence like we knew girl, boy, things like that. So when I first came and I was like, oh, I know, I can speak English in my head, translating from my language. And so this young girl had approached me, and so I was trying to show her a picture that I had drawn. And I remember this so vividly. I drew a picture of like me and a girl. And I felt so confident in using the word. So I would point and I said, the way in my accent at the time, girl. Like to me, I was pointing her like, this is me and this is girl. Like, and she just like looked at me, and her expression in that time, like, funny enough, we became really good friends later on. So she told me what she had told me back then, but me and seeing her expression, she just like looked at me like, what are you saying type thing. So automatically to me it shut me down, and I didn't want to talk to her anymore because there's one English word that I know so well that I feel like I'm communicating with you so well, but you're not receiving it. So to me at that time, it was kind of like,
you felt like the world was judging
me for trying to speak the little words that I knew. So,
I remember feeling intimidated a lot. Same thing. I have a very vivid memory of my very first day of school in Canada, and I still remember this little girl as well. But I was on the playground by myself, and she came right up to me, like right up to my face. Hi, and introduced herself. My name is, what's your name? And I understood what she was asking me, but I was so almost like taken aback by this new person that was just coming up to me and speaking in a language that although I understood, but I didn't really feel confident speaking in. So I was really intimidated, and I just stared back at her. And then she just kept going with the questions. How old are you? And then I remember her asking, what's your address? Like, where do you live? And I remember being like, in my head, I remember thinking, I understand what you're asking me, but I actually don't know where I live. I don't know what my address is. Like, girl, I just came here. And I just stared at her, and I could not get a single word out, like not even a hi or hello. Yes, even though like I understood everything she was saying to me, but I just felt so intimidated. And I think that probably just comes from a feeling of like I didn't belong here. And obviously I'm also just new, right? Like any new child at a new school would probably feel the same thing. And so I just ended up bursting into tears, and she ended up running away because she probably felt like she's the one that caused me to cry, but it wasn't about that. It was just like the feeling of like, where am I? Where have my parents brought me? Like, I want my mom and dad, essentially. And I remember just feeling like that, just so intimidated. I understand you, but I don't feel confident enough to speak and to reply to you. So that was a lot of it for me.
When I worked as an educator directly with children, we had a little girl who has freshly moved here from China, and she cried all day, every day.
Yeah.
And we felt so helpless as educators because I can't even imagine being put in her shoes and being dropped off in a brand new country room place with people, and you don't have no idea what they're saying. Like my heart broke for her, and she cried all day, every day. And I mean, I don't blame her. Yeah. Like that, I cannot imagine. Yeah. And thank you too for sharing your experiences. And, she was 2, so different. Yes. Yeah. But I think for educators, for them to understand your stories, even though you both were a little bit older, of what it feels like when you are new to the country, being dropped off at school away from your parents, where's my mom and dad, and you can't, either you don't understand, you can't comprehend, you do understand but are afraid to speak. Like there's so much complexity to that. And I think we work with such a diverse community, and we work with a lot of newcomers, that it is important for us as educators to put ourselves as best we can in those shoes. We'll never fully understand, but imagine you're just taken and dropped somewhere where you have no idea how to speak the language. Like it's very intimidating.
Of course.
It's very intimidating. And there's always like that sense too where because you speak a different language, people presume that you're dumb or unintelligent. So even as children, right, coming in as like 6 and 8, we still had that. I'm like, I'm capable of doing a lot of the things that you don't think I can, just because I don't understand the language you're speaking to me with.
I have heard people speak to other people in a do you understand what I'm saying type of way, and it irks me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that in and of itself is a lot of prejudice. Like you'd have to unpack that in yourself if you realize you're doing that, because yeah.
And just to like even touch on what you were saying earlier, it's not even always newcomers that are the ones that are learning English for the first time.
Good point.
I'll fast forward now, because my daughter, she's 2.5 now, and right from birth we were speaking only Arabic to her to make sure that she picked up the language. And when I was still like at home with her, I was constantly taking her to play groups at the library, at the family centers here, and all that. And I remember, the facilitators and the librarians would come up to her and they would try to speak to her, but then I would always have to translate. And I would explain to them like, oh, sorry, like she doesn't really understand English. So I would translate, and then Lena would respond to me, and then I would pass on her response. But what I specifically remember, and it's no fault to them, but at the library, I noticed that the librarian would do such a great job at interacting with all the children except Lena. And I felt like maybe she just wasn't comfortable interacting with a child who didn't speak English. And as a parent, that really hurt, because I picked up on it. I picked up on it because I would see her like go around after story time, and then they would do like free play. And she would go around and just like sit down with all the children, ask them what they're doing, make conversation with all the children except for my daughter. I still kept going back because she was lovely, and I understood that it's an intimidating place to be, and it's hard when it's also, maybe it was her first experience with this. I'm not really sure what her story was, but there was no judgment on my end. We continued to go back. We had a great time there, but I picked up on it. I noticed it, and it stung a little bit. And then I remember I would go to Family Center. I'll give a shout out to Family Center Westmount. We went there a lot, and all the facilitators there knew that at the time Lena, my daughter, did not speak Arabic, but they weren't scared.
English, they do speak Arabic.
So sorry. Yes. They were not scared, and I don't know if it's the ECE background, that difference. I'm not sure, but it was like night and day for me to see that they were not afraid to jump in and still socialize and interact with her, versus not. And I think that that's also an important piece to keep in mind, like as educators, when we have families like picking up and dropping off their children, like showing them that you are fully willing to immerse into their world, and we're not just expecting that parents have their children be immersed into ours only. and like kind of meeting them halfway there is so important.
So
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, fast forward your own children.
Yeah.
So in your households, what language do you speak primarily currently?
So for us, we speak Arabic. It's interesting because my husband and I speak English to each other.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Okay.
We always talk about this. We're like, why are we not comfortable speaking Arabic to each other? We're both fluent in Arabic, but for some reason we can't take each other seriously. Like if we talk to each other in Arabic, we just end up making fun of each other.
Oh my gosh.
But since the day our daughter was born, literally right from birth, it was a conscious decision, but I also feel like it came so naturally to us that we only speak Arabic when we're speaking directly to our daughter.
Okay.
We've never spoken to her in English. Now we do a little bit ever since she's been in childcare.
Right.
She's picked up English. She speaks English now. So sometimes she'll say something to me in English. So naturally, I feel like I respond to her in English.
Right.
But prior to age 2, it was Arabic only when we would speak directly to Lana.
In front of Lana, would you, I mean, Mo?
Yeah, we would still speak English.
Okay.
But she... I'm about to go on a tangent, so I'll stop myself because I want Nyiel to share too. But I always like think about how amazing it is and fascinating it is that Lana has heard and has been exposed to English her whole life because my husband and I speak English to each other all the time, and we would speak English to each other in front of her.
Right.
But it's so fascinating that she never picked up English. She would only pick up on Arabic, and it's because of the whole piece of talk is really what builds language in babies' brains. Yeah. And so because when we would speak directly to her and we would expect a response from her to be in Arabic, and so she was only ever given the opportunity to practice Arabic.
Right.
And so that's what helped her build language for her. Hearing language is not always enough to build it in babies. It's the reciprocal conversational turns. It's getting them to actually physically speak it. Yeah. And I think that's what the difference is. But it always just fascinated me because I was like, she's been exposed to it from day one, but she only ever spoke Arabic until she was in an environment, which was childcare, where now she had to be speaking English
as well.
And then once she started practicing speaking it, she finally actually picked up English as well. So,
and are you going to consciously, for her life, speak Arabic to her? Do you think? Like, what's your parenting plan in that regard?
Yes. So I think so. I think even as she gets older, and like even for me now as an adult, I am more comfortable speaking in English. I am more comfortable expressing my thoughts, my feelings in English, despite me being fluent in Arabic. Right. And I think that's what's going to most likely happen with her as well, that she will primarily be more comfortable speaking in English. But what I really appreciate with my mom and even my dad, what they did with us, is the fact that they did continue to always force us to speak Arabic at home. And I really believe that that's what allowed me to hold on to the language, because I did come so young. We have family and friends who their children came to Canada at an even older age than I, and they've lost their Arabic because they weren't really practicing it anymore, because that's it. They learned English, they moved on, they kind of forgot their original, like their first language. But I wasn't given the opportunity to forget. My mom and dad made sure we did not forget. They were like, no.
Do you still speak Arabic with your mom?
Yeah, we only speak Arabic. Yeah, just Arabic. And then with my siblings, I speak English now. But with my mom and at home, it's always been just Arabic. And so I think that's what I would like to do with my daughter, is to continue to speak Arabic to her at home, just to make sure she doesn't lose it, because it's a skill. If you don't use it, you lose it. So that's the plan. We'll see.
100%. My youngest sister was born in Canada, and to this day she still speaks our language. She understands it better than she speaks it, but she's still able to respond in the language. My grandmother refused to learn English when she moved to Canada, so then we had to speak to her only in our language. And I think had that not been the case, I don't think I would be as fluent in my language as I am. Just because, like you said, it's a practice. Like you have to practice the language.
A muscle. We gotta exercise it, right?
100%. And I almost went opposite of you in terms of raising my son, where in our home we speak Dinka, but we also speak English, just generally. Like my siblings and I only speak English to each other unless we're in front of adults.
Right.
Who also
Adults. You're an adult.
You are an adult, babe.
I am an adult, but cultural adults, like the culture.
We're just teenage 30-year-old mothers.
I'm a teen mom.
Literally.
But it's so interesting because in terms of language too, there's the element of culture that comes in that. So in my culture, within my language, even when I'm an adult myself, when I'm around older generational, like my grandmothers or like my uncles, I'm still considered like a child because I'm also unmarried. So there's those elements that come into it as well. It's part of the culture. So when I speak about myself in that way, I genuinely, when I'm around adults, I'm not an adult.
Valid. I understand that.
But yeah, so my son, we all speak. My siblings and I speak English to each other, but with my mother and my grandmother, I speak Dinka. So whenever I'm speaking Dinka with my mom, my son has picked up a lot of it just through hearing, but he didn't have that expectation to speak it back to me. So he didn't pick up the spoken language as much as he does with like the hearing. He can understand words, he can understand directions, but he cannot speak it back to me. But I feel like also that was a conscious choice that I've made, just again coming from my experience in learning English with already speaking other languages. I just felt like I wanted to eliminate that confusion or that aspect of him feeling confused, or maybe the fear in myself of not picking up the language and having another barrier on him that he would have to go through being a little Black boy in our community and in our society. So mine was fear driven, and that aspect of the language that I kind of put forth for him to speak first. But my hope is I'm still teaching him the language. Like we're still actively.
I mean, he's only 4. Like
we're still actively learning. Because we also had this conversation where the early years is so important for them to be picking up the language that you primarily want them to speak, because their little brains just soak up that language so quickly. So I don't want to wait too long. So I do speak with him, and I do have cards, and now we're starting to learn a little bit of the alphabet, and we're starting to learn some counting and things like that. So I've taken a very more educational instead of just environmental aspect of language with him, which is going. But now he's also, like me, is being I don't want to use forced, but in our educational system, he's learning French now as well. He's in a French immersion. And I think that's another choice that I've made consciously, just in the sense of if he's not getting the full spoken language at home, I want him to still be bilingual or trilingual, whichever way. I want him to learn languages just like myself.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you made a conscious choice to go the English route, but now French immersion.
So I want him to be exposed to languages. Like I said, like for me, I'm able to pick up languages easy because I've been exposed to them, and I have under my belt already learning languages. So when I came to Canada, I had to learn English. So then I keep learning languages, and I want him to be able to have the same experience. So as much as I'm fearful that, it's going to be a lot for him, I want him to have one base language first. English for him is his base language, and then now that the experience of learning another language,
learning French and learning
Dinka. So I hope that will make that easy for him.
It makes sense.
I think it makes
trial
sense.
And error.
Yes.
I know.
Oh God.
But none of us know what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know if sometimes I'm making the right choices either. But if I could share something that I learned that will hopefully ease your worries, is that one of the biggest myths in bilingual children is that learning 2 languages or more than 1 language will lead to speech delay and confusion. So by you exposing him to all these languages, it will not confuse him. It's one of the biggest myths that's been debunked in so many studies recently. And he's not going to get confused. He's going to pick them up. each one at his own pace and each one depending on which one he feels most comfortable speaking in, but he's going to learn all of them. And I think that that's a beautiful gift that you are giving him, and you're doing such an amazing job. So I hope that can kind of like ease your worries a little bit.
It does ease my worry, because you and I both had this conversation, but there is that fear of like hearing people directly tell you that you speaking another language to your child is going to confuse them. So culturally, that's been in our society. We see that a lot. My uncle stopped completely teaching his daughters Dinka as first language because there was that fear. And so my ignorance of that element of like it's not true, I fed into that, and so there was a little bit of myself feeling guilty of like I spoke to him and said like, oh, maybe we just stop teaching Dinka first and let her pick up the primary language of our society, and then maybe introduce Dinka later, which is what I'm doing. So I felt like I played into that fear, because
but he's still in the early years. Like he is still going to pick it up, even if he's learning it at 4 versus 2 or 1. So the best time to teach them languages is, they say, like before the age of 7. That's when they're going to learn it the most, absorb it the fastest. So he'll still pick it up. Yeah.
And I think that as parents and educators even too, I think that fear you talk about is valid.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was going to be the kind of parent, you know, we're going to embrace this. We're going to do all these things. I'm going to let you wear a tutu to school. You know, we're going to just screw all the societal norms. But then when it came to it, like Mac has a lot of, this is not language related at all, but he has a lot of like very fun socks, like you know, like that old men wear that have like ice cream cones on them and things like that. And before he started school, I genuinely was like, oh no, I have to get him like normal socks, because what if he gets made fun of? So I think when it comes to that as a parent, like you're just afraid of what peers, society will say, will do, will mark our beautiful little babies. And we naturally try to blend, like you said, because it feels safe. And, you know, with Zeke being Black, that is already in a society that does not appreciate cultural and minorities in any sense of the word. That's already something you can't blend. And I can fully understand, given everything that's going on, why you'd want him to ease some of that with the language, because I can't imagine.
And it's very hard too, because as much as you want to like ease that experience for him, like you said,
naturally we all do,
then you think deeper in it and you're like, what are you teaching him though?
Exactly.
Or you know, your daughter or your son, like what are we teaching them that we have to blend into our society in order to feel accepted? So then you're putting so much
too,
or safe,
right? Like,
to keep safe. So then you're compromising so much of your identity, your culture, you know, who you are essentially to fit in. And it's so difficult, but
I think the common ground here is that we all obviously have our children's best interest at heart, and how we go about it is going to look different from day to day even. You know, like you said, at first you didn't want him to wear those funky socks, but then the next day maybe you wake up and you're like, no, you know what, I am gonna let him wear it, right? So even like we change like day to day, and
it's true.
Yeah, we're all just doing our best.
Honestly, we're all just out here, teenage moms, doing our best.
But to bring it back to the myth you were speaking about, when you and I were talking in the past, you had brought up the fact with your brother. Share a bit on that.
So I guess what led me to be so passionate about this too is probably the experience I had growing up with my younger brother. So my younger brother was born here. He was born in the US, but anyway, he was born in a Western country. And by the time he was 3, he was not speaking. And so my parents took him to a doctor, and his family doctor was like, well, what do you guys speak at home? And they said Arabic. Okay, what do his siblings speak? They speak English and Arabic. Oh, does he watch Arabic TV? Whatever. The point is, the doctor ended up prescribing to only teach him one language. And he said the reason why he's not speaking it is because he's confused, and that's where the speech delay is coming from. Focus on one language, and since he's going to school next year, I recommend you stick to English. And so my parents, obviously, they didn't know any different, and they had no reason not to trust the family doctor. And so they followed the rules, and they went home from that day and told us that we were allowed to speak English to our younger brother.
Okay.
TV became only in English for him. He got enrolled in childcare, where he was now immersed into 8-9 hours of a day in English. And there was no longer an expectation for him to respond to my mom, to my dad, to us in Arabic. That was completely lifted for him. But the expectation was still there for myself and my older brother. And so, long story short, a year or two later, my brother actually ended up being diagnosed with autism. And that probably likely was the root cause of his speech delay, not the language part, as we now know what studies have proven. And so although he is now fully verbal, but he does not speak Arabic. He understands it. He understands everything. But because he was never expected to respond and to practice using the language, he does not know how to speak it. But he does understand it. So my mom still speaks to him fully in Arabic. Okay. She'll throw in a couple English sentences here and there, but primarily she speaks to him in Arabic and he understands it fully. But yeah, my family, we were basically like victims of this myth, right? And then it wasn't until I got into post-secondary, and I still remember sitting there in my second year child psychology class, and we're talking about brain development, and this topic of language came up, and I was mind blown. And I was like, this makes so much sense. Like, this is what's happened with my family. And then that's kind of what led me to be like so passionate about this, and what made me decide going forward that if I ever have kids in the future, I want to make sure that I'm teaching them Arabic first. I'm not going to shy away from teaching them 2 languages. But that's where I guess my experience really like rooted from. So.
And you brought up a little bit of that, another element to that too, is the media element to it.
Yes.
Your brother was
television,
deprived of having, the TV shows he watched, the music he listened to was no longer Arabic. So that aspect of learning through our media was taken away, which is so huge on our children. when they're growing up, they're watching television shows and listening to music. And so if that primary language that he's listening to, it's now English because he's no longer allowed to have those in Arabic like you and your older brother have had. It takes that element away from them.
And we know how like amazing music is for cognitive development and so on. But interestingly enough, you made me think about too my older brother and I. So although I would say we're both fluent in Arabic, however, my older brother's is a little bit weaker than mine. Although he's older than me and spent 2 full years more than me in our home country being surrounded by Arabic. But now his Arabic is significantly weaker than mine, I would say. He can have a conversation in Arabic, but it's just not as fluent. And my mom always pinpoints that the difference between me and my older brother is that I continued to watch Arabic TV. I continued to listen to Arabic music. And it wasn't necessarily that I learned Arabic from TV. It was more so the social aspect of it, that I would sit down with my mom and we would watch Arabic TV together, and then we would have conversation about it. She would explain, like sometimes if something happened that I didn't understand, I would tell her, what does that mean? And then she would explain it to me, right? And so my older brother was not interested in that. He just did not care for any of like the Arabic TV dramas. He was not into Arabic music anymore. And so she always says, like, I wonder if that's why, although you're younger than your older brother, like, and you had less exposure to it in an Arabic country, but yours is a lot stronger. She's like, maybe it has something to do with that. And so it's
Does
very
your older
fascinating.
brother have kids?
No, he doesn't.
Have you talked to him about if he does have kids, what he would do in that
Yeah, I think at first he didn't really care too much, to be
Okay.
honest. I think he was just like, yeah, whatever. I would speak to them in English. What's the big deal?
Okay.
But I think ever since having my daughter,
Yeah, I was gonna say, was having a niece.
yeah, now that he's an uncle and like he is so fascinated with her all the time, like he'll come running up to me and be like, oh my God, Lana just said this and this. And then she said it like this in Arabic or in English. And so I think like it's so fascinating. And, you know, I will say too, for the longest time, not having any like cousins in Canada, I had really no one with like young children around me other than my own younger brother. And so my idea of child development was almost skewed a little bit growing up because I was basing it off of my younger brother's development, which we now know like everything came a little bit later for him due to his diagnosis. And so I remember when my daughter started like speaking at like 1, like saying words, I was like, whoa, I knew by the books, everything my education taught me. I worked with toddlers, but I know that they're capable of language at this age, but my goodness, like seeing it in my own child, I was just like, it blew me away. And now I know that my older brother too, because now his niece is his first childhood that he's witnessing since our younger brother. So he's also, I feel like, being like, wait a minute, like they can pick up language at this age, and she can learn 2 languages at the same time. So I don't know what he thinks now, but I have a feeling she's skewed him a little bit.
Good.
Yeah.
So what would be, now as parents of children who know multiple languages, and English was not Lana's first language, what do you hope for their educators? Like, what can their educators do to support maybe you as a child or your children now? What would you say to educators?
I would say accept that fact that they're coming in with a different language. It's not your job to try to make them learn English. It's your job to welcome them and make sure they have that belonging in your environment, and that they feel accepted. And it's your responsibility to go and learn a few words, to go and look up ways to communicate with families instead of just altogether assuming that, oh, they're not going to understand me anyway. So I'll just limit my conversations, or I'll just limit what I share with them. But really taking that responsibility and going out there and doing some work for yourself to make sure that your families, all families, are included in your programs, in your communication styles, in the songs that you're singing with the children, in the books you're reading with the children. Like, go out of your way to look, because they're out there. Like, they're out there, even in little your dolls or anything like that. Like, incorporate language of the children that are in your care, because it's so important for them to have that sense of belonging and where they're going to be spending all of their days now.
I think you basically said exactly what I wanted to say. The biggest thing is that I think we all just want our kids to feel loved. First and foremost, that's the most important thing when we're dropping them off in the care of someone else. I just want you to love my child and care for them. I am not dropping my child off with the expectation that you are going to teach them English. It really is not our job as educators to teach English in that way. We build language through the play that we offer and the invitations that we set up for them and engaging them in activities, but I don't need you to teach my child English. And I don't want educators to ever feel like they can't approach a child or engage with a child just because they don't speak the same language. Because all languages, I'm going to assume here, but play looks the same across all languages. Throwing a ball looks the same in all languages. It doesn't matter. So just don't be afraid of engaging with them. And just meeting them where they are at, and not having the expectation that they need to change or that they are less than just because they don't speak the same language.
Don't assume that everybody's communication style is the same. You know, like a parent who might not speak English has excellent reading and writing in English. So communicating to them in that way, the same as children. We had a young Japanese boy way back in my preschool class who did not speak English at all, but he can write it. Like if you give him the letters, you give him numbers, he can cite them back to you. So like, just because they're not speaking it doesn't mean there aren't other ways that they communicate, and you seeking that out, it's a part of your job, it's a part of who you are as an ECE.
Yeah. Well, and I even think about how we interact with infants who aren't verbal yet. A 3-month-old,
Yes.
we are still having a conversation, a serve and return with an infant.
Mm-hmm.
They can't speak any language.
Right. Yes.
So that is no excuse as educators for us to not engage with children just because they don't know English.
Yeah.
Because you would engage with an infant.
Absolutely.
And
No
you bring
problem.
in the element of the sign language, right?
Sure.
Because that is language.
Absolutely.
So-
Well, thank you both
Yes.
for sharing a little snippet of your perspective of your personal stories, your journeys, the stories of your children and how you're raising them. And I think these conversations are so important, and just continue the DEIB work that we're doing, because we've talked about supporting children's first languages. We've had sessions on that. But to hear real life lived experiences from you personally and how you're approaching it with your children, what you hope for your children, just I hope drives that home for educators. And hopefully they don't shy away or feel intimidated or feel scared, that we are all just doing our best.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
And if you don't know, learn.
Yes.
100%. I was going to add on to that in terms of just that. If you don't know, ask your parents.
Yeah.
They're your best teachers.
Yeah.
Like if you're uncertain about something, about how to say something to your child, or am I saying this right? Like that is such a great question for parents, because then it opens up that gap of like, oh, you're trying to learn my language to make sure my child feels included.
Yeah.
Here's how you say it. Oh, here are a few other, words that would be great. So just asking your families, like
That belonging piece.
that belonging piece.
Right. Absolutely.
Asking the families.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both.
Thank
You're
you.
wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
glad you're here. Thanks so much for listening. You can connect with us on Instagram at Leading Inspired Learning Pod, or on our website at strive.swo.ca/podcast. I would love to have you tell a friend or colleague about this podcast. Thanks again for listening. Please join us next time.